Welcome back. This is vBrownbag live at VMworld 2016. I'm Alastair Cooke and I run some of this stuff, and occasionally I stand out here in front. I wanted to talk a little bit about the different community things that I do as examples of things that a lot of other people in the community could stand up and start doing, because one of the things we occasionally hear is people who would like to contribute but just don't know how, don't know directions, and sometimes they don't even feel like they've got something to do. Something to contribute. So community is really just about a bunch of people. It's people doing things to help one another, and that's the thing that I really love about what I do with vBrownbag and the whole group, is that it is all community. And I couldn't find a more representative picture for a community than this. We're not all quite so young and attractive. One of the interesting characteristics I see in the community is the ratio between the consumption and production. And it took me a little while to see this, that there is this very small group of people who produce a lot of content that is then consumed by a vastly larger group. But it's not even that simple, that all the people who are producing content are also consuming a vast amount. So I've done some blog posts on my site about how I keep up with the sheer volume of content that is produced by community members. And for every one piece of content I produce, I'm reading hundreds of pieces of content from other people. And that makes me feel really inadequate, because there's so much more content being created than I can create. Yet I create quite a lot of content, and if I feel that way, then there's a lot of other people who must be feeling they don't contribute enough. So bear in mind, every time you produce one piece of content, that absolves you of consuming several hundred pieces of content yourself. So ways to start contributing, and some of you may be familiar with the image at the bottom of this screen. It's the header logo from my blog, and it's actually really close to where I live. I used to live a mile's walk from there. I now live about a 20-minute drive from there. Slightly more beautiful. One of the great things about blogging is that you are simply sharing an experience. So it's really easy to write about, I've done something, I've created something, I've solved a problem. Simply documenting it reinforces it. And one of the weirdest things to do is to be troubleshooting a problem, Google the symptoms and be directed back to your own blog because you've forgotten you already fixed this problem. So even if you do it just for yourself, and there's about 4 guys at the back here laughing because they've all done it. It's one of the best things to do, is to actually write it out and document it. And one of the things I as a trainer found was the best way to learn something is to actually try and explain it, to teach it to somebody else. And blogging is one of the ways of doing that. Podcasts are another way of producing a lot of content. So vBrownbag produces lots of video podcasts, but I personally listen to about 8 different audio podcasts that come out every week. And it's a really good way of remaining current with things that are going on in the world. I consider podcasts to come essentially in 3 categories, and the first category is news. So news podcasts are what's happening in the industry now, what technology has just been released, what products are hot. Speaking in Tech and in Tech We Trust are the 2 news podcasts for our IT infrastructure section of the community, and those are really cool. There are a heap of podcasts that are about horizon expansion. They're about thinking about things that you're not currently doing, but should be doing for the next 3 to 5 years. And the Cloudcast has been the top one for me for many years. They produce a vast amount of really good content about vendors that I'm going to care about soon. And in order to be the expert when I need to care about it, I need to start learning about it now. And Geek Whisperers and Scott Lowe's Full Stack Journey are also really good podcasts for that horizon expansion. And then the third category is the education. That's where we in the vBrownbag fall into. We are there to help you learn a new set of skills. And one of the big differences for the education piece is that it's not necessarily quite so current. You can go back and look at some education we did 2 years ago and find it's still really relevant now. And that's particularly true for the design education that we do, because the principles of design don't change. There are a lot of podcasts out there, but there is certainly capacity for more podcasts. There are more podcasts being created all the time, and different perspectives. And that's one of the key things for me about encouraging more creation of content in the community, is that the way I explain something may work for 60% of my audience. There'll be 40% who are still left behind and don't understand because I just haven't reached them. Somebody else can listen to what I've done and re-explain it in a different way, and they'll hit 60% of the audience as well, but they'll hit a different 60% to me. So one of the things that I sometimes hear from new bloggers is everything's been written about, and I'm not as good as Duncan Epping, Frank Denneman. Those guys have been blogging forever and they're great. You don't need to be. You don't need to be those guys. You need to be yourself, explaining things in your own way, and you'll reach a different audience. Some of my mentors in the podcasting world, the guy in the middle is Cody Bunch. He's the guy who started vBrownbag, and then there is my doppelganger on the right, and the muted ginger in the bottom left, the guys from vBrownbag. So these are some of the guys that have supported me and helped me through becoming a more effective producer, and they kind of encouraged me to be involved in this whole vBrownbag thing. vBrownbag itself is a video podcast. We run hundreds of hours of content produced over many years by dozens, possibly even hundreds of different presenters, including all of the presenters here for the Tech Talks. We go to multiple conferences to make these nice short Tech Talks, including OpenStack Summit, Cisco Live, and we'll be back here in Vegas for NetApp Insight in a few weeks making more Tech Talks. Lots and lots of content, all produced by community experts giving their own time up to help you to learn. So it's really nice that it's all community-generated content that's free to consume by other community members. So things that you can do to get involved in vBrownbag, and this is a very classic one that we'll get during VMworld, is we love what you guys do, what can I do to help? Stand up and say you'd like to present something. So get in touch with us and say, I've been doing this project and I'd like to talk about it, or I've just passed this certification, can I help you with your program of teaching that certification? Just a little bit of education. Now, the full episodes are like 45 to 90 minutes long, depending upon whether you talk fast or whether you ramble for hours. But you can come and do these Tech Talks, so you can teach just something very small in 12 minutes. And Tech Talks are actually a really good entry to speaking at a conference. So you're speaking at an international conference, there's cameras in front of you, there's a whole video crew here, there's thousands of empty seats in front of me. And you get that beginning of the feeling that I can actually stand up and speak at a conference, and maybe people will laugh at my joke. It's good to have more than one. The other thing is that we are always looking for more people to help us make vBrownbag, make the podcast happen. And so you can help to either create the content or host the episodes. And I know Jonathan, like me, has very little hair left because he schedules presenters. And so he has to often go looking for people to present content. And so mostly vBrownbag is stand up and say, I'd like to do something, and we will get you. You'll be doing something. Other people that have been influences in my life, this is Nick Marshall, and he is the primary author now of Mastering vSphere 6. He and I were working on a manual for a lab manual for preparation for VCP certification, and we needed a lab environment for that. And that lab environment actually got to be more valuable and more finished than the lab manual we were going to use to write it, and that's how AutoLab came about. So for the few of you who follow vBrownbag who've never heard of AutoLab, it's a way to automatically build a vSphere vSphere test lab using a single physical machine with pretty high spec, but it automates all of the things you don't care about, like the Windows Server builds, and can automate all of the vSphere builds as well. It's available with a whole heap of automation. It's available as a service from the Ravello Cloud, and if you're a vExpert, and you ask really nicely, they'll give you some free credit on Ravello every month that you can use for running AutoLab. AutoLab's full of so many virtual machines, it'll chew through your free credit nice and fast. So what could you do that's a little bit like AutoLab? Now, AutoLab took hundreds of hours to build. If you look at the script, it's so fragile and nasty, it takes hundreds of hours to maintain as well. You could actually just do some scripting, publish it up on GitHub, start doing some publicity about some useful scripting. So I've got a little script up on GitHub that documents a Horizon View environment. It's a good way of sharing a resource that you've created with other people. You could create your own scripts, make them available, start writing about how to use them. You could simply publish documentation, and this is one of the things that I think is really missing from us, is sharing the knowledge that we have in the form of documentation. So writing architectures for particular implementations, writing standard procedures for things we always do, and then we have to write those same standard procedures, documenting how things go wrong, and this is something I really love to see. On the Hackaday site, they have once a week, they will document a failed project. Somebody tried to do it and it didn't work. I would love to see us spend more time documenting when things went wrong for us and what we learned when they went wrong, because you learn far more when something goes wrong and you have to fix it. Helping people through that whole troubleshooting process by documenting something that went wrong and how you resolved it is really valuable stuff for the community, and I would love to see more of that Naturally, you see I haven't done any of that kind of writing, but it is something I think will be really useful. Bunch of other guys up here, none of them in the audience this time. The first time I presented this was actually at the Chicago VMUG, and the guy in the middle is the leader of the Chicago VMUG. And then down the back of the audience, there was some excited calling, because on the right-hand side is a bunch of the VMUG girls who come around and run the VMUGs for us. And also the top right as well, Andrea. Bunch of people who are really involved in VMUG. VMUG is a great organization to get involved in the community. The simplest thing to do is just turn up to some VMUG meetings and talk to somebody you don't know. One of the things you often find in the crowds, both at the VMUGs and here at VMworld, is that the person standing in the queue waiting for whatever you're waiting for has some experience that's going to be valuable to you, or you have an experience that's valuable to them. So rather than just talking to your buddy who you're there with all the time, start a conversation with the people around you, both here at VMworld and at your local VMUGs. Also, at all of the VMUGs, there are some vendors who are there to present and to teach. Now, the smart ones want to do the teach a lot more. Some of them just want you to be sales leads for them, but smart ones are getting the idea that VMUGs are about teaching the attendees. So go talk to the vendors, particularly talk to vendors you've never seen before. And then, of course, the most important thing for community development at VMUGs, the things that we really don't see enough of, is community members who are actually presenting at the VMUGs. Go up and present the community sessions. And I do quite a lot of speaking at VMUGs, presenting stuff that's not vendor-oriented, a lot of community-oriented stuff. And I get invited to a reasonable number of VMUGs to simply bring a voice that's not from a vendor. And those community member sessions, as the VMUGs call them, those are the thing that will bring VMUG back to being what we want it to be, which is centered on the users and the attendees. And the more we can teach the vendors that it's all about the technical attendees, the better as well. So I do a whole lot of different things for the community and to help the community. Absolutely every person who is watching this has a story that they can share and can help to make the community a better place. Please do take the time to stand up and do it. And come see us here at VMworld for the vBrownbags. Thanks, you guys. Have a great day.